You know, it's a pretty sad time for us Asian Americans. It's so sad to the point that no matter what I will do or what I can do, I'll just never be American enough compared to other minorities and never truly feeling like I'm truly accepted in this society. So often we're pushed and pulled to other people's voices as Asians. But when it comes to our own issues, we're often ignored or told to suck it up. So in today's video, I want to talk about my experience being an Asian American and some of the struggles I've had to deal with in terms of discrimination, racism, and all that sort of stuff as well. So if you're kind of curious what it's like being a fourth generation Chinese American, then keep on watching this video. Hey, welcome back. My name is Kevin. And first things first, I'm not that much of a political person. When it comes to social issues and all that, I'm not the first one that kind of stands up, speaks out against injustice and whatnot. For me, I actually carry on this OG generation attitude of keeping my head down, focusing on myself, and just doing what I can with everything I can control. But especially with the rise of violence toward our elderly Asian people as well. And even my experience dealing with discrimination and like backhanded racism, I believe it's really time for me to kind of have a voice and kind of share my insights as well. And as I was thinking about what to exactly talk about in this video, it really came down to one thing for me personally. And it's the fact that, you know, no matter what I do, I will never be American enough compared to my fellow Americans as well, due to how I look as well. And that's really, really, really sad, especially all the sacrifices both my family has made for this country being here in America as well. Now, just to give you a little bit of insight, so when my family first came to America, Chinese people really weren't wanted in this country. We had things like the Chinese Exclusion Act, and then we've always had this kind of backward racism toward people. Yes, maybe it's not as overt as other things like other discrimination like, hey, you're black or whatever, but oftentimes we're just ignored if you think about it. So I'm not sure if I ever told you my family history, but my grandfather came to this country, and honestly, to get citizenship in this country, my uncle and his brother served in the military as well. My grandfather was in the US Army, and believe it or not, he was actually deployed out to Italy to, guess what, fight against the fascists and real Nazis during World War II. Now, as far as what happened over in Italy, we don't know, but you know, one thing I do know, my great uncle paid a really deep price. He was shot and disabled to the point where he couldn't even reproduce or have his own kids. My grandfather, apparently there were some gases during World War II where it really affected his thyroid, and he died from effects from the war, complications from the war. To think about all the sacrifices my family have made just to give a better life for me, my brother, for my whole entire family. They came here in search for a better life, and it wasn't easy for my grandma to raise 5 kids by herself. Later, my father, my uncles and whatnot, they served during the Vietnam War. I personally had to deal with the effects of PTSD from the Vietnam War as well, because my dad never sought out treatment or anything like that. I always look at my family, and it just makes me so proud to know that my family has served and they have made sacrifices trying to make this country so great. Only to have comments sometimes saying, go back to your country, or stupid ass comments like, hey, can I speak to someone who can speak English? To those people that have said that, you. Seriously. And for me, I've always had to deal with this stupid ching chong bull or go back to your country, or you know, these backhanded comments toward me as well. And honestly, it really hurts knowing that my family served in the military. We served during World War II, Vietnam War, and no matter what we sacrifice, we're just degraded down to these stupid ching chong jokes and whatnot, and not truly accepted into society as well. If you think about it, I'm not sure if other people have to go through this, but being constantly told to go back to your country when in fact this is my country. This is where I was born. I was born in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts. I was raised in the US. I was educated through the US system. I worked my ass off to take my AP classes in high school and eventually worked my way up to my doctorate of pharmacy as well. And to have someone make backhanded comments to me about going back to my country or speaking English, it's extremely disrespectful. Because here's the thing, what's the difference between a white person coming to this country, seeking freedom, and my people? These are the ideals of this country. This was supposed to be the land of the free and to be accepting of people. I'm not sure if any other races or ethnicities have to deal with this, but for some reason, like when I chop it up with my Asian friends, we've all had to deal with some sort of this backhanded racism. Oftentimes I just feel like a stranger in Western society, or I'm just told I'm not American enough. So let me give you an example. My previous career as a pharmacist. As a pharmacist, we have to go through many years of schooling. It's not an easy thing. Obviously, I have to learn how to speak freaking English to practice, right? And I remember like when I first started pharmacy, I remember this Karen she came up to me and she had the balls to come up to me and say, "Can I get someone that speaks English? I don't want you handling my prescriptions." I was a pharmacy tech at the time and I was pretty pissed off. I asked her, "Excuse me, I speak English just fine." And in my head, I was like, I probably speak better English than you, and I'm probably more educated than you too, right? Like that is really, really disrespectful. And I remember she had the balls to insult the pharmacist behind me as well, because she was Korean and she had an accent. This sort of should not be tolerated, because here's the thing, America is not just white America. I'm so sick of being told that I'm not Asian enough. And there's been so many times as a pharmacist where, I've had patients come up to me and say, I don't like your pharmacy because all y'all are Asian. Here's the thing, no one told you to come to my pharmacy. No one told you to actively bring your prescriptions here. So why would you even drop that off, right? And so many times I talk to so many of my friends where we've been kind of harassed with ching chong jokes or things like that. And it just makes me really sick. It absolutely makes me really, really sick, because you know what's sick about it? Because it's actually anti-American. One of the ideals of this country was coming to this country, knowing that you could be different and you can make your way here. And those were the ideals that both my grandparents and my parents really strive for as well. And it's something that I really believe, because guess what? We weren't happy in China. There was no opportunity in China, but we came here knowing that we would have a better future for our future children and generations to come. And when you see me talk about the refugee hustle and whatnot, it's this initial dream that my grandparents had, and many other my Asian friends, their grandparents have had too, of coming to this country, just imagining for a better life and making it happen through hard work and discipline as well. And so often we hear these dumbass comments, and including myself, and we just bootstrap it. We just deal with it, because there's no sense in arguing with someone who's just ignorant as well. And obviously back in the day, when we first came here to America, we just had to suck it up, because, when you're just coming from a war-torn country, the last thing you probably care about is racism. And the number one thing is just putting food on the table. But our generation, the first generation, second generation, third generation of kids, people like myself, we're just so sick of it, because this was our country. This is all we knew. It's not like we could go back to China and they probably would not accept us because we're too American for them. And so we're left in this really weird situation where we're not American enough for the general American public, yet we're not Chinese enough or Asian enough to go back to our country. And this really, really makes us sick. And especially when people are targeting elderly Asians and whatnot. How sick is that? And it wasn't until that situation in Atlanta where those people were murdered and shot up where we started getting more attention. And it's really disappointing knowing that our stories, things that happen to our community, don't ever get highlighted as well. And I feel like there's this Asian narrative within the community where it's like, you can't trust people outside of your community. And I think it's really this bootstrap mentality that has really been carrying us here as well. Back in the day, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act, and especially with everything that happened in the LA riots in K-Town, cops just bounce. And us Asian people were so often ignored, but people use us as a model minority every single time, and yet cap us with the bamboo ceiling too. It's not right to treat people like this. It doesn't matter what color, it's not right to treat people like this, because here's the thing, imagine yourself in this position. You do the right thing, you go to school, you get a really great career, you're providing for your family, you're helping out the community, and guess what? You focus on your own shit but get killed because of your skin color, and then you get told to suck it up, or it's not an Asian hate crime as well. And honestly, it really breaks my heart knowing that, you know, we're looked at as the model Asian minority, but when our issues come up, they're often ignored, or people don't care about them, or, you know, we're just told to suck it up, or we're just told that we're not American enough. That's bullshit. I can't tell you how many times people called us the model minority, and how many times in my life where people are just like, isn't that a good thing? When you're held up to such a high standard, or when I personally felt like I wasn't good enough, my grades weren't good enough, when I had all this pressure coming because I was an Asian model minority, you know what people don't tell you about? They don't talk about the depression that you have. They don't talk about those thoughts of you disappointing your own people and feeling like you're a disgrace to your own people as well. These are positive stereotypes. They have consequences too. I haven't heard anyone really talk about as well. And I think it's an important time to talk about these things now. So what do? This obviously is an American problem. It's not with just only us Asians, but it's with a lot of different minorities where there's an overstepping of boundaries, where there's disrespect. What do? How do we solve this problem? And in my opinion, the answer is really simple. Just treat us like people, regular everyday people. Yes, we might look a little different. You know, yes, we might eat different foods and all that sort of stuff, but treat us like people. If you're not a minority, you probably don't understand how many times I've been asked, what's your real name? Or where are you really from? For me, I was born in Boston. If you're trying to ask for my ethnicity, you can ask that, right? But at the end of the day, we are American. We might be Asian American, whatever, but at the end of the day, we are American. And the solution to this, what I've realized, is just having better conversations with people. What I want to do with this video is just simple stuff. The only thing I ask is spark up a conversation with someone who's Asian and get to know our perspective a little bit. Ask us, hey, how are you feeling with everything that's happening these days? Have you ever experienced any sort of like discrimination, racism, or anything like that? And just take a second just to listen from our experience as well. It might be very insightful. You might find out that we actually have a lot more in common together than we actually think. Anyways, my name is Kevin. I am a proud Asian American. And if you're Asian American or anything like that, I would love for you to just comment your experience below. Whether it's, you know, have you suffered through, these conversations of what's your real name, or where are you really from, or this backhanded kind of like model minority bullshit that we have to deal with. I'd love to kind of hear your experience, whether, you've gone through very similar experiences to me of this like backhanded racism of being held as a model minority as well. I would love for you to comment below. And by the way, speaking about model minorities, how sick is it knowing that, schools like Harvard in the past, we had to do even better because of our skin color, not by our talents and strengths as well. Because of our skin color, we have to perform higher than our other Americans as well. How is that fair? And how is that right? That's why with things like affirmative action, I feel like it's one of the most racist things that we could really be doing, because we're not evaluating people based off their character. We're evaluating people off of our skin. And if you are kind of curious about my story in terms of being an Asian American and why I'm attending things like therapy, you might enjoy this video as well. Anyways, guys, consider subscribing to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.